Hello, and welcome to this Pearson Edexcel pre-recorded event. You can choose to watch the whole recording from start to finish, or alternatively, you can access the different parts of the recording separately and just watch the parts that are most useful to you. My name is Phil Noble, Chair of Examiners for Pearson Edexcel GCSE Music, on MUO. In this pre-recorded event, we are going to look at the performance of candidates in Component 3 of the June 2019 examination series. We are going to consider the variation of candidates' performance on different questions in the second year of this specification. We will look at the characteristics of strong candidates' responses and explore strategies which will inform the teaching of this component. There are 3 accompanying documents: the question paper, the mark scheme, and the Principal Examiner's Report. Before we start looking at individual questions, we will remind ourselves of the content and assessment of this paper. There are 4 areas of study and 8 prescribed works. There are support materials for teaching each of the prescribed works on the Pearson Edexcel website. There are 2 assessment objectives: AO3, demonstrating and apply musical knowledge. This assessment objective is testing candidates' ability to make accurate musical observations using musical vocabulary. AO4, using appraising skills to make evaluative and critical judgments about music. This assessment objective is testing candidates' ability to draw conclusions from their musical observations. The examination paper is divided into 2 sections, A and B. Questions 1 to 7 are based on extracts from the prescribed works. Question 8 is based on an unfamiliar extract related to one of the areas of study. Section B comprises 1 question, question 9, which requires candidates to compare aspects of one of the prescribed works with an extract from an unfamiliar piece from the same area of study. Having looked at the content, assessment objectives, and the structure of the paper, we are going to look at candidate responses to some of the questions in Section A. 1D is a comparison question which asks candidates to identify differences between the start of the extract and the start of the exposition in the prescribed set work by Beethoven. There are 3 marks available for this question. In this type of question, it is important that candidates state clearly which part of the extract they are referring to. When candidates are prompted as to which aspect of the music they should compare. For example, in this question, it is rhythm, meter, and tempo. These are the aspects that should be described. It is worth investing time in making sure candidates understand the appropriate vocabulary to use for each element of music. For example, the difference between rhythm and tempo. Note that questions such as this require students to be able to identify the different sections of the piece orally. In this case, the exposition, to be able to answer the question. Please pause the recording now and take some time to read through the candidate's response. When you are ready to continue, just press the play button again. The candidates used tempo words, slow and faster, to describe rhythm, and pitch words, low and higher, to describe meter. This response was awarded 1 mark for correctly stating that the beginning is slow and the exposition is faster. Please pause the recording now and take some time to read through the candidate's response. When you are ready to continue, just press the play button again. The following response was awarded a mark for correctly stating that the rhythm at the start was dotted. and a mark for stating that the tempo was grave at the start and allegro in the exposition. Unfortunately, the time signatures are the wrong way round. The time signature is 4/4 at the start and 2/2 in the exposition. In this response, the candidate makes 2 correct observations for this 3-mark answer. Encourage your candidates to write full sentences which directly answer the question and use appropriate musical vocabulary. We are now going to look at a question that requires candidates to recognize specific features of a genre of a prescribed work that are present in the extract heard in the examination. Question 3E asks candidates to describe 3 features of the harmony of the Pearson extract that are characteristic of Baroque music. Please pause the recording now and take some time to read through the candidate's response. When you are ready to continue, just press the play button again. This is a good candidate response, which was awarded 3 marks out of 3 for perfect cadences, ground bass, and functional harmony. We are now going to look at a response that identifies 3 harmonic features. However, only 1, suspensions, is a feature of the extract. Therefore, the response was awarded 1 mark out of 3. The following response identifies 2 features of Baroque music that are present in the extract: ornamentation and use of harpsichord. But they are not harmonic features, so do not gain credit. Cadences is not precise enough to gain credit. Therefore, this response was awarded a mark of 0. Please pause the recording now and take some time to read through the candidate's response. When you are ready to continue, just press the play button again. Question 7 in the examination requires candidates to notate a short rhythmic phrase and a short melodic phrase. 5 marks are available for the rhythm and 5 for the melody. We are now going to look at question 7A, rhythmic dictation. The first response we will look at is a good candidate's response. Please pause the recording now and read through the response and the relevant section of the mark scheme. Press play when you are ready to continue. This is an example of a correct response. The candidate correctly identifies all 5 note durations and scores full marks. It is not necessary to beam quavers and semiquavers together. Student response 7 is a less successful response. Please pause the recording now and read through the candidate's response and press play when you are ready to continue. The candidate scores 3 out of 5 marks. The first 2 quavers and the final minim are correct. Strategies which help candidates in rhythmic dictation include looking at the number of marks available. There are 5 marks available, but the candidate has only written 4 notes. Looking at the duration of the missing beats and ensuring the note values they are equal the missing beats. Also, to look at rhythmic patterns used elsewhere in the extract, as composers often repeat rhythmic motifs. You may want to look at the examiner's report for this question. If so, please pause the recording now and read through the section on question 7, where you will find further examples of candidates' responses, and press play when you are ready to continue. We are now going to look at question 7B, melodic dictation. This first response is a full mark response. For melodic dictation, only the pitches are credited, not the rhythm. Please pause the recording and take time to look at the candidate's response and the mark scheme. Press play when you are ready to continue. The candidate correctly notates all 5 pitches. Candidates should be encouraged to use pencil in the first instance, or use the blank staves provided in the examination paper, and only write the final answer in black ink when they are happy with it. Strategies to help candidates with melodic dictation include listening for repeated pitches, such as the 2 Ds at the beginning of this example. It is worth spending time practicing the recognition of intervals. Sight singing can help with this. Question 9 is marked using a levels-based mark scheme. There are 2 stages to this process. The first stage is to decide in which level the answer should be placed. To do this, examiners mark the essay using the indicative content and the level descriptors. Using a best fit approach, examiners then decide which level most closely describes the quality of the answer. If an answer displays characteristics of more than one level, examiners use their professional judgment to decide on the most appropriate level. It is important to note that candidates can only be awarded an AO4 mark when they have made the corresponding musical observation. The second stage is to decide on a mark within the level. To do this, examiners take into account how far the answer meets the requirement of the level descriptor. If you are not familiar with the mark scheme, please pause the recording now and read through the mark scheme, both the indicative content and the level descriptors for question 9. When you are ready to continue, just press the play button again. The final question on the paper required candidates to evaluate how effectively Afro-Celt sound system, familiar extract, and Punjabi MC, unfamiliar extract, use instrumentation and music technology to create a fusion song. The candidates were provided with a skeleton score of both works in the source booklet, which showed the loops and solos that drop in and out of the mix. There are 12 marks available for this question. The first response we will look at is a good candidate response. Please pause the recording and read through the candidate's response and press play when you are ready to continue. This is a level 4 response which was awarded 10 marks. The candidate wrote an essay plan which helped to ensure that the essay remained focused on the question. Less successful essays were those where the candidates wrote about every aspect of the extract rather than only instrumentation and music technology, which was what the question required. This essay has a clear structure which first addresses instrumentation in both extracts, then moves on to technology. This is something candidates should be encouraged to do, as it helps them to make direct comparisons between the extracts. The essay has a short introductory paragraph, which compares the cultural influences of the 2 works. Candidates should be advised not to write lengthy introductions or conclusions, as they need to use their time in the examination to make musical observations and draw evaluative conclusions. A strength of this essay is that it makes direct comparisons between the 2 extracts which are embedded throughout the essay. The essay is slightly imbalanced between instrumentation and music technology, possibly because the candidate ran out of time. Now we are going to look at a Level 2 response. Please pause the recording now and read through the candidate's response. Press play when you are ready to continue. This essay makes points about both extracts. The candidate correctly identifies instruments, AO3, from the familiar extract as being Celtic or African, AO4, but is vague about the instrumentation of the unfamiliar extract. Looping and layering are named as being uses of music technology in both extracts, with a description of multitracking in the unfamiliar extract. There is no supporting evidence in the form of references to the skeleton score, and appraising points cover similarities and differences in a mainly descriptive way. Always encourage your candidates to provide references to the skeleton score for each observation they make. We are now going to look at a Level 3 response. Please pause the recording and read through the candidate's response. When you are ready to continue, press the play button. This essay has been planned and mostly remains focused on the requirements of the question. It makes musical observations, AO3, about both extracts with corresponding AO4 points. For example, they are both sung. This is an AO3 point in different languages. This is an AO4 point. Comparisons, such as this one, are built in throughout, but the essay is lacking in references to the skeleton score. Evidence. This essay would have achieved a higher mark if it had more precise observations, including more evaluative comments, musical examples, and a wider range of vocabulary. Here is some advice which addresses common issues with Question 9. The highest scoring essays were planned, helping candidates to write focused and coherent essays. Encourage your students to divide their essays into paragraphs. Essays need to be balanced. Students should try to make an equal number of observations about each extract, and they should make direct comparisons by using such phrases as "on the other hand" and "in comparison." Encourage your students to make notes on the skeleton score as they listen to the extracts, so they can provide evidence to back up their observations. This is a skill that needs to be practiced before the examination. Candidates need to make evaluative comments explaining the effect of their musical observations. Candidates should be advised not to write lengthy introductions and conclusions. If you are not familiar with the examiner's report, please pause the recording now and take some time to read through the section on Question 9, where you will find further examples of candidates' responses. Candidates should listen to the prescribed works as much as possible. They should also practice listening to extracts from different sections and compare extracts from the same work. They should also listen to unfamiliar works from each area of study. When describing music, candidates should be encouraged to use appropriate musical vocabulary and to be as precise as possible. Both questions 8 and 9 require candidates to follow a skeleton score, which is a skill that needs to be practiced. This is the end of the pre-recorded event. Thank you very much indeed for working through it. I very much hope that it will inform your teaching for this component. If you need any further help and support, please contact Jeffrey Hall, who is our subject advisor for Pearson Edexcel Music. His contact details are on the Pearson Edexcel website. If you have any questions about this component, or indeed about components 1 or 2, you might like to consider using Ask the Expert, which is a specialist support service provided by Pearson Edexcel to support teachers, heads of departments, and assessment associates. Again, details can be found on the Pearson Edexcel website. Finally, here are 3 further links to Pearson Edexcel services. Goodbye.